This is quite an honor to offer this event today. My name is Julia Reisman. I'm the Director of Philanthropic Investments over at CET, formerly known as the Center for Ecotechnology. And today's event is being sponsored by a whole coalition of wonderful local nonprofit organizations, both environmental and community oriented, including the Amherst Survival Center, the Cancer Connection, CISA, which is community supported agriculture, Grow Food Northampton, Hilltown Land Trust, Hitchcock Center, Kestrel Land Trust, and Northampton Survival Center. Our coalition was established out of a potluck this past summer as we got together and thought ahead to the National Estate Planning Awareness Week taking place this week in October. And we would have loved to have invited more nonprofits, but what we decided was it was more important to reach out to you as beloved members of our organizations, as donors, friends, volunteers, let you know about this program and this event, and then share this information with other nonprofits and encourage you to think about the organizations that you love and to think about the ways that you can continue to honor the place that you love and the organization you love with your gift. And it was more important for us to reach out to you and share information. There's a few things I want to share with you today as we kick off this event that you should know about this webinar. Besides the fact that we're excited to announce that this is National Estate Planning Awareness Week, we want to know that we felt it was important to guard your privacy. And knowing that some people are hesitant to attend an informational session and to learn more because they are worried they're going to be, I don't know, inundated with follow-up calls and pressure to do something that they may or may not want to do. So we decided to make it possible for you to register and that your information would not be shared with the coalition, with other organizations. We wouldn't know if you attended or not. And it's a little weird because I would have loved to see your smiling faces on this webinar and to know who's here, but it felt more important to guard your privacy. And so that said, we are recording this session, right? We're recording it?
Yes.
Yes, okay. We're recording this session and we'd be happy to share it with you afterwards. So here's the deal. Either email us to let us know that you would like to receive this recording, or contact one of the coalition members, or some of our members are planning to email after this event and just say, weren't sure if you were here or not. But here's the recording if you would like it. And if you get more than one email, it's because you are beloved by more than one organization. It's not because we shared your information or violated our promise to protect your privacy. And I also want to say that one thing to know for today is we encourage your questions. This is really intended to be your place to ask questions, to learn more. And if you have a question, other people have the same question as well. So use the question and answer place. I have it open right here on my screen. I can see it. I'll be your MC for today, and I will be passing those on to Valerie. I would like to now introduce to you our key speaker for today. And Valerie is somebody that I have heard speak. She is incredibly elegant, elegant,
Thanks.
elegant, and makes it so understandable and relatable what you can do, why you should do it. And I feel like that combination of the heart-centered reason for doing this kind of planning made total sense. That said, we're not endorsing her as better or worse than any other person you could work with. We encourage you to work with your own financial advisor to come up with plans that work for you. And think of this as just our way of wanting to share information with our community, with somebody we know who does it really, really well. The other thing you might want to know about her that makes her totally appropriate for today's event is just how much she is grounded in this community. She grew up as a child enjoying loving being outdoors and in the outdoors in the wilderness, and went off to college to study um, comparative literature, enjoyed curling up with a book in the library and reading novels and stories that connected us with themes like that we confront in our lives all the time. And when she moved to Boston, she was teaching English to recent immigrants, and that sparked her curiosity in how to use law to make a difference in people's lives in some concrete and really non-adversarial ways. And after law school is when she fell in love with estate planning as that interconnection of the stories of our lives, the things that we love, and the use of the law to advance a greater good. But I love the fact that Valerie lives in a blended family and is a black belt in karate. And I think if anyone can chop through the complexities of estate planning, is probably a black belt. So the other thing you should know is that since Valerie has been in this community for a long time now, she's already worked with a lot of folks that you may already know in our community. So I wouldn't be surprised if you know somebody who has worked with her before. And so put all these pieces together like a building block, and that's the story of Valerie. And Valerie, as we're talking today, I want you to know that as your MC, I will be interrupting you with questions. I hope that is okay with you. Yes.
Perfect.
Valerie, take it over to you. We're going to turn off the slides and pin you so that you're nice and big on the screen. And thank you for showing up for this.
You're quite welcome. Thank you for the introduction, and welcome everyone, and happy National Estate Planning Awareness Week. What a fun week. Celebrate as you see fit. And here we are to talk about how to support our community and our those causes that are most important to us. How can we do that? And what does that have to do with estate planning? And so I'm going to take you through a little outline I've prepared to talk about just sort of overarching ideas. What is an estate plan? What is estate planning? What's a will? What's a trust? But then talk about how people can support charitable causes in different ways. Some of them are super simple. Some of them are a little bit more involved, but also not that complicated. And at any point, if you have questions, just type them in and they'll get shouted out at me. So what is estate planning? And is it only for the wealthy? Because it sounds wealthy when you hear the word estate. It is not only for the wealthy. Estate planning it could be as simple as creating a will. A will is part of an estate plan. Some of the other documents that are included in an estate plan are a healthcare proxy, a power of attorney, and trusts, and all of those together can comprise your estate plan, but it could just be as simple as a will. Everyone has a will in Massachusetts, even if you've never done a will, if you've never written one yourself, gone online and done it, hired an attorney to do it, you all have one because the state, the Commonwealth of Massachusetts, creates a will for you. So if you've never done it and you die, the state has already figured out who's going to be in charge of your stuff and where it's going. That's written in the law. So it's helpful to sit down with someone and talk about who you do want to be in charge and where you want things to go so that you know those things are going where you want them to. It does not have to be complicated. You don't necessarily need to hire an attorney to do a will. I'm biased because I'm an attorney who drafts wills every day. I don't love online wills. Sorry, free will. Because I see some problems. Sometimes they're not specific enough to your situation or to the state in which you live. But I would rather that you do it than not do it. What is a trust? What is a trust? People talk about this all the time. They call me and they say, I need a trust because someone told me I needed one. It's really a lot like a will. It's a document that names someone in charge and tells people where stuff goes. It's just that a trust can offer some other advantages. One of the biggest reasons people use trusts is to control assets from the grave, from beyond. This is sometimes called dead hand control. This is a hand coming out of the ground. You can control assets from the grave. That just means that you can put requirements and restrictions on how things are used after you're gone. So sometimes people use a trust because they have kids who are little. Or they have a family member who has a disability, or someone with an addiction issue, or someone who's just not good with money yet. Someone who's going through a divorce. So that's one big reason people use trusts. Those allow you to control. Also, it's about probate avoidance. Anything that's in a trust when you die doesn't go through probate. What's probate? Is it a dirty word? Do you want to avoid it? This is another common topic. And probate is really just a process. It's a process through the court, the probate court, that is required if, when you die, you own something in your name only that has no beneficiary attached to it, no joint owner, and is not in a trust. So for example, if I have a bank account at Florence Bank with $30,000 in it, woohoo for me, and it has no joint owner, and I die, that account has to go through the probate process, because that's the only way that someone can have the authority to deal with that account. If I have a will, the process is easier because my will tells the court who's going to be in charge of that checking account and where that checking account goes. If I don't have a will, the Commonwealth of Massachusetts decides who's in charge and where it goes. Having a will doesn't prevent probate. It just makes it easier. So this is a very broad overview of what an estate plan is, wills versus trusts and probate. But we're really here to talk about charitable giving and how we can do that. Go ahead. Yeah, interrupt.
A quick question. One person was confused because they thought you had slides. And I just wanted to interrupt and say, no, you don't have slides because you know your content really, really well. But I did want to let people know that we created a short handout that will have available a clickable, downloadable link so that you can have it at home and you can go back and read it.
Great.
But yes, there are no slides. We didn't make a mistake.
Sorry, you just have to look at my face the whole time.
Yes.
So charitable giving, how do we support causes that are important to us, whether those are local organizations or national or global? There are many different ways that you can do this. One way is to make gifts while you're alive. And a lot of us do that. Whether that is a one-time gift, one year, because something's going on, or whether you regularly make gifts every year at the end of the year or whenever. Many people make lots of small gifts. Some people make larger gifts regularly or one time. So making gifts during your lifetime is a wonderful way to support causes. And I think most of us are familiar with that. And here's a poll question.
Yes. So we're just opening up a poll question to find out where people are in their charitable giving.
Nice.
And I'm going to give folks just another like 30 seconds. So if you haven't gotten yourself to the keyboard or you have walked away from your computer, this is a good chance to go back in. We want to know a little bit more about you and to see where you are in terms of your giving, whether you make gifts now or not. So
and remembering that it's anonymous.
Yes. So this is anonymous, and the count of 3, we're going to show you the results. So 1, 2, 3. Close the poll. We've got 100% giving.
I mean, it's a self-selecting group here, but well done, everybody. All right, so lifetime giving. Another way that you can support your causes that whether again, that's local or whether it's national or international, is to make gifts while you're alive, but through something called a QCD. Now we're going to get a little bit complicated here, but I'm going to try to break it down. So there's something out there called a qualified charitable distribution, or QCD. And this is an opportunity for people to make charitable gifts out of their retirement accounts. If you meet certain requirements, one of the requirements, really the only, is that you are 70 and 1/2 years old. If you are 70 and 1/2, you can every year make a gift of up to $100,000 to charitable causes directly from your retirement account or accounts. And if you're married, you can double it to $200,000. Why would you do this? Well, because you want to support a cause or causes. Also, too, you get a tax deduction, a charitable deduction for that gift. If you are 73 years old or older, these gifts that come directly out of your account to the charity can count toward your RMD, or your required minimum distributions. So this is very specific for a specific group of people of a certain age who have retirement accounts. This is something that you set up directly with the custodian of your account. So if you have an IRA at Fidelity, you're going to contact your person at Fidelity and talk about making these QCDs. How do you do it? How do you set it up? You do it directly with Fidelity. If you have a financial advisor, I would go there first because they can help you do that and be the intermediary who can help you do that. Don't have to do it every year. Could do it once, could do it multiple times. It's a great way to get a tax deduction and to lower your income if you're worried about income taxes. So those are QCDs. Go ahead.
QCDs. There's a little bit of a question. Somebody asked, there's no tax deduction for QCD. Explain the tax benefits of a QCD.
There is a tax deduction for a QCD.
Okay.
Yeah, you do get a tax deduction because it's a charitable gift. So if you're looking to, lower your income taxes, if you do have RMDs, that's a great way to do it. It's an overarching charitable deduction. So if you're trying to reduce what you have overall because you're worried about estate tax, which is, I could go on about that for another 1.5 hours, but I won't. If you're concerned about estate taxes, it's another way to reduce what you have to reduce that tax liability.
Are there QCDs taxable income when made?
They're not taxable income there. It's a deduction when made.
Oh, okay.
It's a deduction when made. Yeah. All right. I just want to go back to lifetime giving, just regular old gifts, because I want to touch on something that's commonly misunderstood. In Massachusetts, there's no limit to how much you can give anyone. You could give $1 million to a local charity. There's no limit, but you could also give me $1 million as a gift, which would be great. And there's no limit. There's no gift tax in Massachusetts at all. So you can give an unlimited amount in Massachusetts and not ever have to pay a tax on that. You don't have to pay the tax, and the person who's getting the gift doesn't have to pay a tax. There's a federal gift tax, but you'd have to give away, what are we at now? $14 million before you would have to pay a tax. But there's this number that everybody knows. It used to be $10,000 a year, and then it was 11, and now it's for 2025, it's going to be 19,000. If you give over that magical number, so for 2025, if you make a gift to me of $20,000, there's still no gift tax. You just have to file a form when you do your income taxes that says that you gave over that magical amount. Still nobody pays taxes, but you get it. Massachusetts wants to track it. So it doesn't make any difference with charities. You can give as much as you want to a charity and you don't have to file that form. I just wanted to remind people or let you know that there's no gift tax in Massachusetts. All right. So you can make, do you have a question?
No, I just
Okay.
like, that's news to me. I didn't know.
I know,
that.
nobody knows it. It's great. So you can make a lifetime gift. You could arrange for one of these qualified charitable distributions from a retirement account. Or you could set up a donor advised fund. What's a donor advised fund? Well, essentially you set up, it's almost like a little mini foundation where you contribute money to this fund. And over time, you can direct that money to various charitable organizations. It can change, the amount can change, the charities can change, and that money is invested and it grows tax-free. It's a great opportunity to plunk a lump sum down and then let it grow. And then over time, as your interests change, you can direct where that money goes. Donor advised funds. I know that Community Foundations of Western Massachusetts has, works with people to set up donor advised funds. Various banks like Fidelity's and Vanguard's have donor advised funds. It is a nice opportunity to make a larger gift and then have the ability to make different contributions to different charities. With a donor advised fund, you get a tax deduction when you fund the first time, and that's it. So every time money goes out, you're not getting another charitable deduction on your taxes.
Well,
And
we have a
here we
quick
have-
poll here to ask people whether they have a donor advised fund or not. And so I'm going to give you a little bit of time again. If you've walked away from your computer, put something in the oven, come back, find your keyboard, answer the poll question. We're going to keep it open for just another 5 seconds because it looks like everybody is near their computer. Valerie, that means you're really engaging people. Thank you.
Great.
So 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Let's share the results. So
Wow, pretty good. Okay.
yeah, we have 17 people don't have a donor advised fund, but 3 do.
Excellent. Nice. Great. All right. Donor advised funds, wonderful opportunity for giving, not necessary, because there are still other ways that you can give. So far we've talked about making gifts during your lifetime, which by the way are called inter vivos gifts or inter vivos gifts. It's your Latin for the day. QCDs and donor advised funds. Even easier is using a beneficiary designation to make a gift, but this isn't going to be during your lifetime. This is after death. So we've talked about how to make gifts during your lifetime. Now we're shifting to post-death gifts. Why would you make a gift at death? Well, there are a number of reasons you might want to do that. One very important reason is because you want to make a lasting impact on a cause that's important to you. We all have causes that are near and dear to us. Most of us, I'm sure all of us on this Zoom, have some, principles we hold dear. We live in a time where things are a bit crazy and we're worried. And so making a contribution to a charitable cause is a way to counter that. It's a lasting legacy. It's a little bit of an imprint. It's a little tiny bit of immortality, if you will. Just a little, because none of us is immortal. It's also good modeling. If you have a family, if you have children, whether they're young or old, it's a really nice way to show what's important to you and to model that civic engagement and hopefully pass that baton to your family who will carry that on and make charitable contributions, whether it's to the same causes or different. It's still good modeling. And you can really make a good impact, especially with local charities. It's a way to build the community you might be leaving behind and strengthen your community. So how do I do this? Well, beneficiary designations, really super easy, wonderful way to make a gift to a charity. There are certain accounts and assets that you may have that allow for the designation of a beneficiary. For example, retirement account, like an IRA, 401k, 403b. You can designate, and most of you, if you have one, have done this already, a primary beneficiary. That's the first person who's going to get your account when you die. Doesn't go through probate, goes directly to that beneficiary. You can have numerous primary beneficiaries. You could have 2, and they each get 50% of the account. You could have one that gets 100% and then name a secondary beneficiary if that first person isn't alive. You could name 5 primary beneficiaries and each gets 20% or an unequal amount. Why am I talking about all this math? Because you could designate 50% of your IRA to go to a local charitable organization and 50% to go to your spouse or to your niece or to me. You can divide up your account to go to different places immediately on your death. I'm using an IRA as an example because if it's not a Roth, the money in an IRA hasn't been taxed yet. It goes in tax-free and grows. If you name a person as a beneficiary, when they take the money out, they pay income taxes on it. If you name a charitable organization as a beneficiary on a retirement account, whether it's 100% beneficiary or a partial beneficiary, that charitable organization does not have to pay income taxes on it. So they actually get more bang for the buck. Beneficiary designations are you filling out a piece of paper and sending it to the custodian of that account, whether it's Florence Bank or Voya or New York Life, or you're going online and you're adding or changing a beneficiary. It's free. You can do it whenever you want. You can change it whenever you want. Sometimes they want the form notarized. Often they don't. It's a really, really flexible way of designating charitable causes to receive something on your death. And it lets you balance the ability to provide for family members and charities at the same time, because you can do that fractional or percentage share among all of the people and places that you want to receive money. So that can be done on an IRA. Oh, good. Look, we've got another question. I love this.
Another question for you. So we have a poll question to find out that part about if you have children and grandchildren, yes, of course, you want to take care of your family, but some people just, they don't have descendants in the same way. But we're also wondering, like, have you ever set up a beneficiary? So, and if so, have you named a nonprofit or more than one? So, some people, this may be familiar news. So I'm going to give you 3 more seconds to fill out this poll. 3, 2, 1. Let's share the results. Did you all
Nice.
see that? I'm assuming it flashed up there and showed you.
Yeah. Interesting. Yeah. So this is it's a great question because many people come to me. I have lots of clients who don't have children or spouses, and we sit down and talk about where they want their assets to go. A lot of them are charitably inclined, and so we talk about the different ways that they can support these causes during life and at death. And so beneficiary designation is a really nice way to do it. especially if you find that you're someone who causes change over time. You know, if there's something happening in the world, if there's something happening locally, you know, the flood that came through. I mean, sometimes there's a need that speaks to you, and that need might be filled, and then you've changed your mind. And so that's a great flexible way that can be used in combination with all of these other things. Life insurance policies. Many of us have a life insurance policy, whether it's term or whole. Same thing. Those policies give you the opportunity to name a beneficiary or more than one. And you could name a charitable cause or causes as a partial percentage beneficiary of a life insurance policy. So beneficiary designations, great way to do it. And then by will or in a trust. So this is what most of us think about, you know, leaving something behind at death. We think about a will or a trust. And let's talk about wills first. Although it's pretty similar when we're talking about trusts. You're in your document, you're naming people and places who will receive what you have at death. It could be a portion of everything, or it could be something specific. You could put a specific cash amount in your will to go to a particular charity. You could put a fractional share of everything that you have, or a percentage. Or you could leave something specific, like, for example, real estate. Some people come to me and they say, I want to leave my house to you know, a particular charity in town, the house and the land. And I say, that's amazing. That's great. Hooray. However, that's a very specific gift that comes with certain strings attached to it. It's not the same as just handing someone a check, which is easy. And so if people are interested in leaving real estate to a charity, I always encourage them to contact that organization first before we put it in writing in the will and say, hey, charity, do you accept gifts of real estate? First of all, some of them don't, some do. Is it your intention that you want them to keep the real estate and use it, or allow them to sell it and use the proceeds? And if you want them to keep it and not sell it, that's another important question to ask them, if that's something that they do or willing to do. The more information you have, the better. And that brings up another question that I ask folks when they want to make a gift in their will to a charity. Do you want it to be for a specific purpose at the charity? Or can it be unrestricted, which is another way of saying, here's the money, do with it what you feel as an organization is best for the organization at the time that you're receiving this gift. And I know, and everyone on this call who is working for or with an organization knows that unrestricted gifts are the best kind of gifts, because you're allowing that organization to determine what they need the most at that time. You can make a restricted gift, and that just means specifying that if I'm leaving a gift to, you know, like a land trust, that my land only be used for, I don't know, that there be no hunting on it. I guess that's more of a restriction, but that's something that you need to talk to the organization about to make sure that that's something they can do, are willing to do, so that you can, you know, achieve what you want to achieve. So listing an organization in your will is a fairly easy and common way of leaving a gift. But if you're balancing, you know, what if I have grandchildren that I want to leave money to and I want to support a local charity? And what if I write in my will $25,000 to the charity, and you know, the rest goes to my grandchildren, but then when I die, I only have $25,000. I don't really want the charity to get everything and my grandkids to get nothing. So how do I do that? This is another reason why it's good not to do an online will, by the way, because if you're talking to a human being, the human being can say, well, we could say $25,000 to the charity, or it could be a percentage or a fractional share. And if it's a percentage or a fractional share, your grandkids will always get something, even if you die with a lesser amount. So there are ways that you can do that if you're trying to balance supporting family with charitable causes. Naming charities in a will. Same thing in a trust. A trust is like a will. It's a document that names someone in charge and tells us where stuff goes. So same thing in a trust. You could do numerous beneficiary designations in that trust. I want a specific cash amount to go to a charity, or a fractional share, or a percentage, or a specific thing to go to a charity. When you die, if you've named, charities in your trust, your trustee is the person who's in charge of your trust, will make those distributions to the charity. So your trustee will deal directly with the charity to make sure that transfer happens. If you've named a charity in a will, it's going to be your personal representative, which is the new word for executor. That person is going to deal with making sure the charity receives the distribution. But remember,
Valerie,
yeah, go ahead.
we do have a question.
Yeah.
So your discussion about setting up the will, the question is more about if you've recently updated your will. Is a codicil the best way to designate a charity? So just when you get a chance, could you talk about a codicil?
That's great. I will. I was just going to say, when we're dealing with a will, remember that a will is only going to govern assets that have to go through probate. So, for example, and this will answer this question.
Okay.
I have a will that says everything goes to Planned Parenthood. Everything. And I have a bank account in my name only. It's got $30,000 in it. And I have a life insurance policy worth $100,000. And on my life insurance policy, I have named Planned Parenthood as a beneficiary. So when I die, that life insurance policy goes directly to Planned Parenthood. No probate, has nothing to do with my will because they're a beneficiary. My checking account that has no other name attached to it is going to go through probate. It's going to go through that process. And my will is going to govern that asset. And my will says, give everything that's going through probate to Planned Parenthood. So ultimately everything gets there. There's just a delay on the checking account because it's got to go through that process. If I decide before I die that I want to leave half of what I have to Doctors Without Borders, I could do a codicil, which is like an amendment to, or an addendum to my will. And it says, oh, I actually don't want to leave everything to Planned Parenthood. Now I want to leave it 50% to Planned Parenthood and 50% to Doctors Without Borders. When I die, if that's all I do, just the codicil, my checking account will get divided between Planned Parenthood and Doctors Without Borders, because the checking account is the only probate asset. But Planned Parenthood still gets $100,000 from my life insurance, unless I go and I change that beneficiary to 50% Planned Parenthood, 50% Doctors Without Borders. So long story short, if you have a will that names a charity and you want to add one or change it, remember that you can also do that on your beneficiary designations. So, for example, my will says everything to Planned Parenthood, and I decide I don't want to leave Planned Parenthood anything. I could name a different charity as a beneficiary on my life insurance policy. So it's Doctors Without Borders. They get that whole thing. And on my checking account, I could name my niece as a beneficiary on the checking account, and she'll get it, and Planned Parenthood gets nothing. Can't name a charity as a beneficiary on a checking account, though. Only a person. All right, I hope that answers the question.
Yeah.
It can get a little crazy. So we've talked about making gifts during your lifetime. And that can be just a straight up check you send to a charity, or it could be out of a retirement account through one of these qualified charitable distributions. You can set up a donor advised fund during your life and make gifts that way. And those actually can continue after you die, but you have to make sure that you appoint someone to take over for you. And then after death, you can designate charities
Let me just
as
interject.
beneficiaries. Yeah,
Your DAFT, you can designate someone to continue to operate your DAFT. Or you could close out your DAFT and just distribute the assets
yeah,
that are.
you can, absolutely.
So if you didn't have anyone in mind to take over your DAFT, you could just like you did with your retirement fund, decide who
Right.
should get what. Okay.
Exactly. So that it ends, it just gets distributed at your death and doesn't continue on. Yeah, that's right. That's a good point. So naming beneficiaries directly on accounts, and then naming beneficiaries, charitable organizations in your will or in a trust. There are these things out there called specific charitable trusts. These are very, very specific. I'm talking about general old, regular old living trusts that are the most common. But there are these very specific types of trusts called charitable remainder trusts, and sometimes charitable. Oh my God, I'm blanking on the other. I can't remember the other type because I never do them. But those are very specific types of trusts that you can set up that will benefit a charity either when you die or during your lifetime. And you can also receive income during your life while getting a big tax deduction when you make the gift. I'm not going to get into those. Those are very unique and specific to certain situations. Some of you may have them. That's great. I want to talk about communication. What are you telling your charities? Are you telling them anything? Are you letting them know that you've named them in your will or as a beneficiary on an account? Should you? What are the pros and cons?
Oh, can I interrupt for just a sec?
Yeah.
Before you go, the pros and cons of telling people that you've remembered them.
Yeah.
What if you are truly lazy and lazy is a judgment. Oh, that's bad. Well, what if you literally did nothing, had no will, have no kids,
Oh, great question.
designated no one? Like, would your money just go to the state?
That's a great question. Yeah.
Okay.
No, it could, but it's very, very, very unlikely that it would go to the state. And I'll speak to Massachusetts because that's the only state I know. If I don't have a will at all and I die and I have assets, whether that's a house or a bank account or a life insurance policy, whatever it is, there's a law on the books that it's basically like a table of kinship. And it in Massachusetts says that depending on your family composition, this is what people are going to get. So for example, if I die and I'm single, but I have children, Massachusetts dictates that my children share equally in what I have.
Hmm.
If I am married and have children and I die, my spouse will get everything. This is different in different states. If I die and I'm married but I have no children, my spouse gets some of it and my parents get some of it if they're still living.
Hmm.
If I die and I'm married and we each have children from another marriage, it's a whole other story. My spouse gets some and my children get some. And there's a whole formula as to what and how and when. So it depends on your family composition and the state in which you're dying as a resident.
Okay.
But most people would rather that they decide where stuff goes than run the risk that be decided for them. Sometimes it works out just fine, you know, if it's even very traditional, like I'm married and we have 2 kids and I want everything to go to my spouse and you don't have a will, it could happen that way. Anyway, good question.
All right. So continue on.
Sure.
We've done our
Yeah,
homework.
so the question is, should I tell the charity if I've named them in a will or as a beneficiary? You know, do I need to do that or not? If I'm the charity, the answer is yes. I want to know. I want to know because I want to budget for it. I want to plan for it. I want to have an idea of what might be coming in eventually, or just, it's just nice. I want to know how many people out there are supporting us and whether, you know, we're reaching people. I want to know how much support there is. Also, if you let the charity know, especially if you're planning on making a sizable gift, you can work together with a charity. Like I said, we talked about unrestricted giving, but it's nice to have a bit of a partnership with that organization. It actually makes you as the donor feel more connected to that organization, and more comfortable in making that gift. I think it's a really great idea. Again, if you're planning on leaving something specific like a house or a Kubota tractor, you gotta call. You gotta ask them if they want it. That's also important. What if I change my mind though? What if I name them in my will and then I update my will, or I do a codicil and I'm not gonna leave them something anymore? Then what? Then I've already told them, well, it's okay. You know, it doesn't, you're allowed to change your mind, even if you've told the charity. You don't necessarily have to update them and tell them that you've written them out of your will. But it really does make you feel good and more connected to the organization if you let them know. You just feel a little bit more involved. But you don't have to. Certainly, if you are going to leave a sizable gift, I think it's important. I think it's good for them to know. Some people want acknowledgement and some people don't. And that's something you can work out with them. Absolutely. You can remain anonymous. You can still let them know and remain anonymous to an extent. They don't need to publish your name anywhere, or maybe that's what you want. And that's good too. Letting people know that you've made a gift is not boastful. It can encourage other people to do the same and follow suit and admire that and then want to do the same. So I'd like to point that out. It is not braggy to be acknowledged. Here's a poll question.
Are you planning to designate an afterlife gift to a charity? So give you just a few minutes to answer that question. You know, this question is worded a little bit differently in that the last part is I'm leaving it to my children and grandchildren. I've talked to donors who've said, I'm leaving it to my children and grandchildren, but I'm writing them a letter about my values and the organizations I care for and asking them to consider making a donation at my memorial. So it's interesting how passing that baton, passing that legacy can happen in, you know, either this way or other way. So a count to 3, we're going to close this poll. 1, 2, 3. Let's share the results.
Very nice.
Great.
That's great. That's a great point that you made about, because I get this question a lot. Can I just tell my people, my children, my grandchildren, whomever I'm leaving money to, can't I just kind of instruct them to make gifts? And I just list them, or I say to them, you decide. You can absolutely do that. There's
Valerie, we have
Yeah.
just about 10 minutes left. So I just
Yeah,
want
great, thank you. So you can absolutely do that. It's a wonderful way to, like, you know, pass the baton, as we say. They're under no obligation to do it other than a moral obligation. So, you know, if for example, my father says to me, I want you to, you know, donate some portion of what I'm giving you to the NRA, and he dies, and, you know, I could instead donate it to a very, very different organization, he wouldn't know unless he comes back and haunts me. So there's no obligation or legal requirement that they do that. But if you trust them to do it, then absolutely, that's an easy way. And that also is flexible because you could change your mind and you can just keep them posted. All right, I do want to leave time for questions and answers. I'm just going to do sort of a, a review of what we've talked about so far. And then please feel free to write in questions, but essentially, there are ways that you can support your community while you're here and ways that you can do it while you're no longer here. You can make gifts directly to charitable organizations, an unlimited amount. There's no cap on how much you can give per year to as many organizations as you want. You can set up a fund, a donor advised fund, during your lifetime and direct monies out to different organizations or to one. You could work with your retirement accounts to make distributions of your RMDs or up to $100,000 per year directly from your retirement account out and get a charitable deduction for that as well. And then you can do post-death planning and post-death gifts. You can do that in your will. Name a charity or two or three as a cash gift or a fractional share or a percentage. You can name charities in a trust if you have a trust or you set up a trust. Same thing, cash amount, fractional share, percentage. And you can name charitable organizations directly on accounts as a beneficiary or a partial beneficiary. Those accounts won't let you name a cash gift. It has to be a fractional share or a percentage. But that's a way, another way. And you could use all of these or some combination of 1, 2, or 3, or 4, or pick one. I think it's important to talk about your intentions and your charitable inclinations with a financial advisor if you have one. We don't all need one. So if you don't have one, that's fine. And with an estate planning attorney, if you have one, it's really important because when I sit with people, I ask them to tell me all of their assets, how they're owned, what kind of assets they are, if they have beneficiaries, because I want to be able to achieve what you want in all of these different ways, in the ways that make the most sense. Okay.
Okay. Questions. So, Corey, you had your hand up earlier. We can unmute you if you would still like to ask your question. And while we figure out whether you want to be unmuted and ask your question, there's one typed in here, which is there a way to leave everything to my spouse or kids, but make the charity my backup in case they're no longer alive?
Absolutely. So you can do that in a couple of different ways. You can do that in a will. So any well-written will provide for what I call a parade of horribles, which is like, everything to my spouse. But if my spouse isn't living, then everything to my kids. And if they're not living, everything to their kids. But if they're not living, I mean, it's ridiculous. But yes, you can plan for this. So you can provide that. If I have a spouse and no kids, everything to my spouse, but in the event he dies before me or she dies before me, then I want my gift, all of what I have to be divided in thirds among these 3 charities. You can do that as beneficiary designation as well. So on my life insurance policy, I can have spouse 100% primary beneficiary, and then charity 100% contingent beneficiary or secondary beneficiary, so that if my spouse isn't living when I die, it goes to the next named beneficiary.
Great. This next question is, what happens, and this is so appropriate for little organizations in our community, what happens if the organizations I've designated in my will go out of business before my will is distributed?
It's a great question. This is a great question. It does happen. When I prepare a document like a will or a trust, if we're leaving something to a charity in a will or a trust, I always say either to charity X. I'm trying to avoid naming specific ones because I don't want to favor anyone in the community. So to charity X, or its successor in interest, which is a fancy legalese way of saying to an organization that takes over in its place but has the same mission. Or to charity X In the event Charity X is not in existence at that time, to Charity Y, which I prefer actually. So I like people to have a backup plan. If you're naming, if you're leaving everything to 5 charities, I'll say, if this charity isn't in existence, just give it to the other charities in equal shares.
And equal
So-
shares, right?
Yeah, but that should definitely be considered. It's a little bit harder to do that on a beneficiary designation. But as long as you're alive, you can change those designations. So if a charity goes out of existence, you can change it.
So one of the things that's really helpful is to get the EFN number that's unique to the organization you want to support. And I know sometimes with little organizations, you wonder, where do you find that information? But reach out, contact folks, or a place like GuideStar online is a place where you
Yeah.
can type in the name of the organizations you love, and it will
Yes.
just tell you what the EFNs are.
That's an excellent point. There, when I'm advising people or we're naming charities in documents or beneficiary designations, I always say, let's go to the charity's website itself, or Charity Navigator or GuideStar, which are both online, to get the exact correct name of the organization and the correct mailing address and the tax ID number, because that's important, especially if you're dealing with a bigger organization that might have different chapters, and you want it to be specifically for the Massachusetts chapter. That's a great point. Yeah.
So Corey, who had their hand up, typed in the question, but
Okay.
like, how hard is it to change your will? Is it a big deal, hard, or little medium size? Like,
It doesn't have to be a big deal. I mean, it depends on what you're changing. If it's a small change, and you're working with an attorney, it may be appropriate to do a codicil, which is usually 1 or 2 pages. It doesn't take a long time. You already have a will in place. We're just making a small change. If you're changing numerous things, sometimes it's advised that you just update the whole thing. It doesn't have to be complicated. I mean, wills are not particularly complicated. They don't have to be in and of themselves. Your situation in your life might be complicated, but your will doesn't have to be complicated.
okay. Wow. Well, we have just 3 minutes left. I want to do some wrap up, but if anyone wants to stay on after I do the wrap up and continue to ask your questions, hang on, because we want to get every single question answered. But for those of you who want to move on and continue making dinner, I just want you to know that in the chat, if you open up the chat, there's a link to that handout I promised to you. And it's just a quick, short cheat sheet you can print out and keep. I want to give a big shout out and a thank you to my colleagues at all the local organizations that pulled together to make this event happen. And that includes the Amherst Survival Center, the Cancer Connection, CET, where I work, CISA, Grow Food Northampton, Landhill, Hilltown Land Trust, the Hitchcock Center, Kestrel Land Trust, and the Northampton Survival Center. And there are clearly many other local organizations that would have loved to co-sponsor this. We hope we can do this every year and make the pot bigger and bigger, just so you can see the tapestry of organizations that make our community so lovable, livable, and worthy of making it be strong and vibrant for future generations. And I always think of that afterlife gift as your gift to future generations. So thank you for your time and attention today to learn more, to think about this, and to ponder it. If you are ready to take the next steps, I just wanted to help you think about, okay, so I went to this webinar, what next? Contact us for the recording if you want it. Talk to your financial advisor or the person that you trust in your life to think about these things. And if you are comfortable and ready, contact us and let us know what you have decided to do. We would love to thank you in your lifetime. We would like to honestly be moved and to pure joy that you would consider that. And also your interest in making that known and allowing us to thank you in your lifetime, maybe even to share your name as somebody who's taking this step, is also a way to inspire others in our community. There's a lot of research that shows that people tend to make a decision to do something because other people like them have done it too. So that's called social proof. And I would love to show that our community stands strong for the place that we love, where we live. And this is something that we do to take care of it for today and for tomorrow. And with that, thank you very much for attending. If anyone has any additional questions, we'd love to take them right now.
I do see one about how do you find an estate planning attorney?
Great.
Who might specialize in this. My first recommendation is to ask around, ask
You
your
wanna go,
friends.
you can go. We're good.
That's the best way to get a recommendation. Otherwise, you can ask, if you do have a financial advisor, you can ask them. They usually are hooked into local attorneys who they like. You can ask on Facebook, next door. But best place is just asking people who've done it. Yeah.
Are there any other questions that folks would like to put in the Q&A? All right. This was a great joy. Thank you for folks for joining us, and we hope maybe we'll see you next year.
Thank you, everybody.
Take care.
Thank you. Thanks, Valerie. Thanks, Julia.
Take care.